Welcome.
Hello and welcome to episode 98 of the OzLoL podcast. My name is Colossus. I'm the host of the show, and this week we're going to be talking about the Chiefs at the International Wildcard Qualifiers, and also we're talking about patches 5.16 and 5.17. And to help me with that, have Viktor Pradley.
Hello. I am the Victor.
The only Victor worth listening to.
The best Victor, the real Victor,
yeah.
and definitely the only Victor you should be listening to, which is hilarious because I haven't recorded a Victor show in about a month.
I think you have that as down pat as I have the intro to this show because it never changes because I just can't be bothered learning a new one.
Once you find one that sticks, like it went through a couple changes. It used to be the best Victor, the only Victor, and definitely the only Victor you should be listening to.
Yeah.
That sounds weird because of the repetition. So I changed it to the real Victor, and then I was like, you know, that fits a bit better. And you just stick with it every time. And, you know, people show up and they're like, yeah, that's the intro. I'm in the right place.
Yeah.
It's a nice, relaxing feeling of, tip
to all the kids out there on a podcast, make your life easier. Repeat certain things so you don't have to think about them.
So what happens if you're on the OzLoL and then there's a Victor intro?
Get lost? But that never happens because I always intro the show. What the problem is I do another podcast about politics and libertarianism, and sometimes when I have to intro the show, sometimes I give the OzLoL intro. Like it's called Taking Liberties. If you want to check it out, people, Taking Liberties Radio.
I do want to check it out.
And if you listen to the start of this week's show, I always say welcome to the OzLoL podcast. I go welcome to the Taking Liberties this week. You know, it's funny. Anyway, that voice you just heard, if you're listening into the podcast, is a special guest for this week, Wombat. Welcome along, Wombat.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
AKA Luke as well, because we might interchange Wombat with Luke.
Yeah, like how we always call Steve and never Clerical Error. But
Yeah,
we still call Lee Herridge, Colossus.
Yeah.
And Victor is just always Victor.
Yeah. We did call you by your real name for a while, but you seem to
for a
bristle
whole
at it.
2 episodes, and I was like, no, you know, Victor, I just prefer Victor.
Yeah. Luke, tell us a bit about yourself. Tell us, firstly, favourite champion and favourite lane, and then tell us a bit about your website and all the rest of it.
Yeah. So favourite champion is Ziggs. So favourite lane is mid, obviously. Okay. I play both mid and support, like at my level.
Which is, just for the benefit of the listener?
Which is gold 1 at the moment. I was plat 5 like a week ago, and just got demoted. It was
Was it a demotion or was it a decay?
It was a demotion.
It was a demotion.
0 league points and lost about 6 games.
Wombat, it was really nice having you on the show.
See you later.
So what was your rate? What was your rate?
My rank, Infinity.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
I think I'm part of a team that's like gold 5 or something, so it shows up as a gold 5, and I'm like, no, I'm really not. I'm telling you. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's. I just love Ziggs because he's so. You just got so much stuff, so many bombs you can throw, and it's just fun blowing stuff up. Like,
would you say you have an explosive personality, Wombat?
Yes.
Best thing about Ziggs though is his laugh when he walks. It's just like, it is insane. Like, it's just awesome how he kind of cackles as you walk along. And every time I'm playing with the Ziggs and I hear him sort of walking along and just hear the cackle, I'm just like, that's amazing. Yeah.
That's right. Okay. Both Ziggs and Jinx are probably my favourite, themed characters, and they're both pretty similar. So I guess I just like blowing stuff up.
You like crazy, huh?
Yeah. Actually, my favourite thing in League of Legends to do is to get a hurricane on Jinx, and then you just use a Q, and it's just like explosions everywhere. It's so fun. It's almost better than Ziggs.
Fair enough.
So if you want to find more about me, you can head to wombatgaming.com or youtube.com/watchwombatgaming.
Cool.
Got some stuff on there, mostly just gameplay stuff, different. We've got like a small series and like 4 episodes of support or feed. So just me playing dumb support champions.
I'm actually in one of those. We played
support Ash.
He did a support Ash game where it was like, yeah, you could kind of cheese a level 1 kill or whatever, but you know, it's not that good.
Yeah, and we failed.
We won that game. We had like 480 carries, and then I can't remember. We had like some. It was Braum actually. We had a Braum top lane or something just nuts. And then there was Ezreal, and I think there was a Jinx, and I was Caitlyn. and we
But that-
somehow we ended up just hyper carry winning it.
But then I played that like 3 more times straight after that and recorded them all, and I just fed so bad. It was terrible.
Yeah.
So we're not recommending support Ash, especially
Yeah.
now that they've changed the passive.
Yes,
Ah,
definitely not
definitely.
a great option.
So yeah, go check out Wombat. He makes
Yep.
some pretty cool stuff.
Yes, absolutely. All right, well, just some other show news, but we should actually give an explanation of why there hasn't been an episode for 2 weeks. Essentially, the first week it was a combination of I went to Perth on the weekend, and we weren't able to record on Wednesday, so that basically threw things out. And then we were going to record last week, but Steve was very ill when we went to do it. So, and he still is.
There was also issues with like the big pause thing that was happening.
Yeah. That's right.
Wildcards.
We were going to record on Thursday.
We were gonna record between games while the Chiefs weren't playing, but it just didn't work out because that was just an absolute shit show, really.
Yeah.
It's quite, I still do not understand to this point how in a LAN setting where the computers are literally wired together,
Yeah.
you can have issues like that where we have to pause the game and then it unpauses. We have this mad team fight, and then it pauses again. It's a fucking tease, and I don't understand how it happened.
Yeah.
It was pretty shocking. Like we probably watched 15 minutes of that first game in like 15-second segments. Like it was painful.
It was double annoying because Chiefs were smashing it, and then it was like, oh my god, what happens?
Well,
if
we'll get into that more when we
game?
actually discuss the RWCQ.
Yeah, for sure.
So, of course, we should actually mention we're also part of the Trinity Force Network, which they have had none of the issues we've had, and they've been putting out great shows. So you should make sure you check them out. TrinityForcePodcast.com is the website for, that has will show you all the different podcasts, including the Trinity Force proper and the LCS Rundown and the Forwards podcast. So,
You can also go to the Patreon.
Yep.
And for $10 a month, you can support us to get an extra podcast, the Champ Select podcast, run by Days Untold and Serial Bulks.
Yep.
I'm not sure who they're doing this week, but they have
Rengar was the most recent one, I believe.
Rengar was the most.
Yeah.
I did not know that. So they've done Rengar. I know they did Nunu and Corki previously. So they're all good listens if you want to, just give a little bit extra to the network, and we'll give a little bit back to you. And big thank you to everyone who supports the network. Adam kind of doesn't, thank people enough, I reckon. So thank you everyone on behalf of Viktor. Yeah, Adam, all he does is complain about the people who complain. So I think it's good for me to pick up the slack a little bit.
Okay.
I'll stop it there.
Yeah. We should also make mention also on this channel we have the T-Force RPG. So I think it's Leshok runs a Pathfinder game with a bunch of the guys from the podcast as well as some fans. So you should make sure you check that out. I actually don't know what day it is, but again, if you just subscribe to this channel, you'll get it.
It's for us here in Australia. It is Wednesdays and Thursday mornings.
Okay.
Around 11 o'clock in the morning.
Because they do stuff mainly at sort of around 9 p.m. Eastern, which is
11
p.m.
11 a.m. If you're US based, it's Tuesday, Wednesday evenings.
Yep.
I'm not sure the exact times. I talked about it with Leshok once because I was going to jump on just for a laugh.
And also we should make mention of Hearth of the Cards, which is a brand new Hearthstone podcast. So they've just had their very first episode. So if you go to of course, you can get on the website. I think it's specifically, it's like hearthstone.trinityforcepodcast.com.
I can check it now if you want.
Or alternatively, you can go to the T-Force Reddit, which is reddit.com/T-Force Network. So that has all of the different, just all the posts, all the different shows get posted up. You actually can find them there, links to them as well. So, yep, make sure you check that out. And I think that's probably it for show news. Yes, let's get into IWCQ. So, of course, there's going to be spoilers if you didn't catch it already. Chiefs played at the International Wildcard Qualifiers for competing for a place at the Worlds this year. One of two places. They're up against Dark Passage from Turkey, Detonation Focus Me from Japan, and the Bangkok Titans from Southeast Asia. And in the spoiler alert again. Group stage, Chiefs went 3-1. And then in the final, they went
4-2.
4-2. They went 3-1 in the final, and then they went 4-2 in the rest of it. So yeah, how about you guys talk about the games while I go answer the phone because it's ringing.
Unbelievable. Yeah, Wombat, you can start it off. We already talked about the pause extravaganza, so there's no really any reason to keep, shitting on that for any longer. Like it is what it is, and I'm sure Riot know what they did wrong. So there you go, Wombat.
And hopefully they'll let Australia host the next World Card or something like that.
Wow, come on, man. Wombat, Modbro actually put a link on Twitter before, which was see if MBN comes to your area, and it's like checking failed thingy, whatever. It ends up popping up with a picture of Tony Abbott's face saying MBN not necessary.
But I mean, we can't do a worse job than Turkey. Really? What could be worse than?
Well, I mean,
a whole night being cancelled.
Yeah, I mean that could have been a computer problem as well. Like if they had a faulty computer.
I think it was a computer issue because that's what the pauses would have been about. Like someone's got computer issues, and then they get into it. Oh no, the computer issues are still there. Like, how does it happen? This stuff should have been checked and tested well before the games were even going to go live. But
they probably, and maybe they did test it, and maybe didn't. There was something that went wrong. I mean, when you're talking about a live situation, bad things are going to happen, and unexpected bad things are going to happen. So. Yeah. I mean, right, no one can really ding them for not having an idea of how to run live events, like, especially after Season 2 Worlds. Like, things improved substantially, and they obviously learned a lot of lessons. And they do run a pretty smooth operation, like 24 other weeks of the year, or whatever it is, And it just happens that there was one thing that they couldn't fix. And what can you do? Like, it's, I'm sure, like, they have every intention of making it work, and they have... a lot of experience as well. So it's just one of those things where there's a minute chance of something going wrong, and it did go wrong.
Yeah, but it's got to be Australia's turn to host that wild card. Surely, that's got to be the straw.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's. Well, I actually wonder why it is held in Turkey. I mean, now three of those teams are in Asia.
They didn't.
You could easily have it in Australia.
They didn't even have a live audience, did they? This year,
there was no live audience. They were just played in two. They played in two booths just directly next to each other.
Yeah.
So
I wonder why, because you'd pack out. I mean, at least Luna Park, with again, like it'd be at least in Australia it'd be a popular thing to watch.
I guess it's just the way they decided to run it. I don't know. Maybe it was a last minute decision or thoughts about. Well, I mean, the wildcard tournament's been held in Turkey a number of times now. So last year it was held there, and maybe even the year before.
It was a live audience the year before, I think.
Yeah. I mean, they've had it at Gamescom as well. So, I think... Yeah, so, I mean, obviously Europe seems to be... They feel that Europe is a better place to kind of locate it. I mean, I know Turkey's not technically part of Europe, but it kind of is.
It's close enough.
Yeah, so maybe it's a staffing issue. Like, they want to have a bigger broadcast... But with no live audience, you'd sort of wonder why they would do that. So, I don't know. Maybe it just pulled they flipped a coin between somewhere in Asia and then, and Turkey, and that's, it landed on Turkey.
I think the reason it keeps getting done in Turkey is because Turkey has its own Riot Games, set up down there, like Australia does. And then there are other smaller regions that don't have any kind of Riot Games set up, There's no Riot Games Korea or Riot Games China or Riot Games Japan or anything like that, I'm pretty sure.
Well, there is Riot Games Japan. So they have an office in Tokyo.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, their servers only just started up relatively recently. So maybe they probably don't have the infrastructure yet, maybe. But I mean, Riot worked with OGN for the World Final. So it's I think Riot and Kesper, the Korean esports guys and OGN itself, I think they're all pretty, they work pretty closely. So, I mean, not that it matters for the wildcards because they're kind of hold it in Korea, but, I mean, yeah, I guess maybe they could hold it in Australia next year. It'd be great.
I'd go watch it.
Yeah, I'd want to go see it too.
They do it in Sydney though, so I'm stuck in Melbourne.
Yeah.
The jerks.
Well,
Well,
maybe they did the finals 2 years ago in Melbourne.
They did it at PAX.
At
PAX
PAX,
is
yeah.
held in Melbourne.
Yeah. Well, they actually had the winter finals in Perth, so. But yeah, the regional finals in Melbourne.
We should probably talk
Well,
about the
let's
games.
yeah, I was about to say, let's get into the games themselves. So what did you guys think of Chiefs' actual play during? Well, let's talk about during the qualifying stages, during the group stage. What were your thoughts on
awesome.
Chiefs?
They look like the strongest team for sure. I thought they were gonna, like, going into finals. I thought we had it easy in the bag, like almost a 3-0 sweep. Like,
Yep.
It looked like we were going to Worlds during the group stages because we were just like even against Bangkok Titans, who we eventually lost to. Spoiler alert! Like, we were beating them, and it wasn't a huge issue playing against the Bangkok Titans. They were pretty strong, but it wasn't like, oh no, this is a real big threat that we need to worry about. It's like, nah, we're going to Worlds.
Yeah, and I mean I forget her name, the chick with blue hair.
Frost Curin?
Yeah, she kept saying the word macro over and over and over, but I think that the reason she said it is because it explains it the best. You know, the Chiefs' macro play, their strategy was well above every other team at the wild cards. They just couldn't team fight as well as a couple of the other teams, but their strategy was way better. So that's what carried them through, and unfortunately they just dropped the ball in the finals.
Yeah, they have Chiefs are very good in their early and then later into the mid game plays. Late game is sometimes where they get a little bit wobbly, but normally their lead from their early game, mid game strategies is so great that their slight weaknesses in late game, which normally comes down to their champion picks, are quite made up for by that. Because they have such a strong lead already.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it's getting into the finals. Like, looking at Bangkok, like, I didn't really get to see a whole lot of the group stage, but looking at Bangkok in the final, if they had any weakness in the group stage, it didn't show. Because that first game, they came out absolutely firing on all cylinders. Like, by 10 minutes, they were ahead in pretty much every single lane. I think top lane was the only place they were held even. And they were just kicking the crap out of Chiefs. So I guess it's one of those things that
bad.
like it can, well, and something we talk about a lot. Chiefs in the OPL have a lot of consistency, but I guess at this level, they didn't have consistency. Like, they played well one day or the group stage days, and then day 3 they just didn't hold it together in quite the same way.
Yep. And they kind of also rotated through who got the carry. It wasn't Radio every game. Even Spooks got a turn, which is pretty rare in the OPL. It's almost always Swiffer or Radio, but Spooks had a couple of games where he was on fire. So that was interesting to see. And but yeah, fortunately that didn't make the difference in the finals. So.
Yeah, and I guess Bangkok didn't I guess what we see with the OPL is that few teams can actually apply consistent pressure across the whole game, where we did actually see that with Bangkok, which is, not surprising since they're the top of their region as well. So, I guess that's something that Chiefs don't have to deal with quite as much because very few teams can manage to actually do it. Bangkok just put the boot on their throat and just kept pressing until the game was over. Particularly, G4 played out of his skin in in mid, particularly like when he went Diana, it was terrifying, and Yasuo as well. Just really, really scary stuff. Got really fed, and if Swift is not doing well, that's not a great sign for the team. And Radio wasn't. Radio and Swift Swift was beaten, and Radio wasn't playing that well, and certainly the enemy marksman, I can't remember his name. It was Lloyd. Like, he on Sivir, he was just rocking the hell out of everybody.
Sivir, of course, still very freaking strong.
Yeah, I think in the group stages, so because of that first 15-minute game that was discarded, Spooks just went insane and got he was just going nuts. So in the group stages, they actually focused Spooks a bit, and they shut him down massively in at least the first game. I can't quite remember the second game, but they didn't know that he actually wasn't their carry. You know what I mean? That they had that 15 minutes worth of playing against Chiefs where they realized, or they thought he was the carry, and I think that's probably what might have even lost them the group stage games, is focusing Spooks and then him falling behind, and then Radier and Swiffer just carrying the team through it. Whereas in finals, obviously they'd learned their lesson from that. So it was impressive.
Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, I mean, it's impressive. Like, that's one thing that Australian teams probably aren't quite as good at and aren't used to, is teams being able to see what happens and learn, like throughout the best of 5, or obviously a couple of days series. You know, they learn and they fix what the problems were, and they come back a totally different team the next day. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, like, particularly with the lack of opportunities to play in best of 5s. Like, I mean, the only time you have a best of 5 is in the semi-finals. Is semi-finals even played on best of 5 in OPL? I'm trying to think. I think it might even just be finals. Like, I think it might just be the final alone is the only one that's best of 5.
Yeah.
No, they had the semis at the studio in Sydney.
Yeah, was that best of 5 or best of 3?
It might be best of 3.
You might have been best of 3, but it was a best of. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't single.
But I mean, it's just across the long series, it's a different sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. And the teams like, obviously this is international, but teams like TSM, that's what they're renowned for. You know, during the season they don't do that well, but then it gets to the best of 5 and the pressure zone, and that's when they really switch on. So
they can sort of keep adapting their strategies and trying, okay, maybe we'll go for this, and then when they sort of get on, like even Chiefs was sort of doing that. Like they were trying this Olaf pick into a lane swap, and they kept trying to do this pretty much every game until it finally really paid off in the third game, where he was able to go big with the Twisted Fate ganks and all the pressure that was coming out of the mid lane. And then so they were working on it in game 1, and then it got a bit better in game 2, and then they finally made it work in game 3 proper, and then he had to get banned the next game because they were like, all right, we need to stop them in this 2v1 bullcrap with Olaf because it's becoming a problem now.
It was interesting to see Ejim and Radier, who are easily the most dominant lane in OCE. You know, there's no other support in ADC that can stand up to them, and
into a lane swap.
Yeah, and they were trying for the lane swap constantly to get Radier farmed and give him that advantage that he normally gets doing anything, you know.
Yeah. And also, I mean, I think there's, like, the game 2, I think, had a really good example. Like, very early, they went for a 4-man play down in the bottom lane. They converged, but then there was a bunch of small mistakes that cost them a lot. Like, and
got turned into a 4-man Sejuani ult.
Yeah, well, you know, and I think that was a bit later on, but you know, it was one of those situations where, like, Ejim, you know, like they knocked up the Lloyd, the marksman, and then Ejim kind of knocked him away with a headbutt, and then, you know, Radier went to flash over into the dragon pit and he missed, and so he died. You know, so little things like that, just kind of, maybe it's nerves, but, you know, they cost him quite a bit, and I think Bangkok kind of capitalised on it pretty well where they could.
Mistakes you can't afford to make, and the 4-man Sejuani ult I mentioned before, it was like a 4-man tower dive in the bot lane, or a 3-man tower dive that turned into a teleport and a mid lane roam, and everyone was down there, and they had the advantage by about 2 people. And then they were sort of in there and they were hanging around too long. They all got low and they're trying to back off. And then here comes the mid lane Diana teleport that Bangkok was running every single game just about, unless they pulled Yasuo instead. And then Sejuani comes down, 4-man ult, because they're all just packed in the tri-brush.
Yeah.
Diana comes in and just blows everyone because mad resets and big damage everywhere. Because Diana is bloody OP.
Yeah, she was
because because they hung around too long, and it's mistakes you can't afford to make, and we don't normally see from the Chiefs during the OPL season. They're normally quite structured and cool-headed and focused, and okay, we back off now, we go in now, and I guess it might be that they're doing things that would normally work for them quite easily in the OPL, because obviously they're just such a cut above, and then it doesn't quite work. or it doesn't go to plan, and then they sort of fumble a bit, like, oh, what do we do now? And then the shot callers get a bit confused, and
Well,
then
I
they
mean,
get
I
into
think
these situations.
you know, there's also probably a bit of a it's a whole different situation there on the other side of the
Yeah.
world. You know, they're playing like it's just I guess there's and it's very high stakes. You know, this is the series that will get them into the world finals.
It's also a new
And
team. Bangkok are not a team that they had any experience beforehand, and so like they picked Sejuani. Who's picked Sejuani since she was top dog?
Yeah. But having said that, I mean, there was a time like in Final 2 where Chiefs managed to get Moss was out of position, the enemy support was out of position, picked him off, that sort of led into kind of an extended skirmish where they were able to pick up a few more kills, and then they were able to get an inhibitor. So it's not like Chiefs were, I mean, you sometimes see games in OPL where teams just literally have no idea what the hell they're doing. They just kind of wander around the map. Like, that wasn't the case with Chiefs. Yeah. So they still were, and well, as we saw with Game 3, they were able to actually make plays, capitalize on things, all that sort of stuff. So,
I mean, I think the pressure of being Australia's representatives did get to them a bit. I don't know if you guys saw on Twitter and Facebook, but a few of them, Radier and Spooks and Swiffer, I think, have put they've posted long posts basically apologising to Australia for not making it to Worlds, which I think's a bit funny. I think they're being a bit hard on themselves, and I think Australia's pretty happy, and I think we support them and are proud of them because they represented Australia better than anyone has before. I don't know, what do you guys think about them? I guess maybe there was a few negative comments and they've taken it to heart a bit.
Well,
I mean,
you go.
You go. Oh, right, okay. I mean, I think they do feel the pressure of. I mean, not only because they're representing Australia, but also I guess there was a lot of expectation that they would do really well. They came into it with only one loss. I certainly felt, I'm sure others probably felt, that there's probably never been a team better placed to actually make it into Worlds because Chiefs have already been to an international tournament earlier this year. I mean, I can see why they would be really disappointed with how it panned out, and especially with how well they did in the group stage. Like, I mean, everybody knows he really gets behind their teams. I mean, I remember the very first wildcard tournament where, Chiefs won their first couple of games, and people were going absolutely out of their minds. I mean, I was, and others were. So I think they realize how excited people get by the possibility of them doing well, and yeah. So I mean, I guess I can see why they might feel really bad about that. I think they did really. I mean, they got into the final, which I don't know. I'm trying to think of if any teams have actually made it from Oceania into the sort of the finals. I think last year we did, but that's because there's only 3 teams in our.
Legacy made it in, but it was between Legacy, Russian Force, who were awful, and Dark Passage.
Yeah. Where this time around there was 4 teams. So yeah, it's
on whether or not I'm disappointed in Chiefs, it's over now, and so there's no reason to sort of barrage them like, oh, what he's done, he's fucked up. I mean, you can look at the games and they can point out for themselves like, oh, we shouldn't have done that, they shouldn't have done that. That's just something you do, like after every game as a team, you should do and try and better yourselves. But like if it was between games and in this hypothetical scenario, I'm a staff member at Chiefs, like one of their analysts or coaches, like between games, I probably would have been blasting the boys, like, come on, like trying to fire them up because, I do feel like they did drop the ball in the finals. But now that it's all done, I'm not I'm not salty at Chiefs or anything like that. I'm quite proud of them because they went to the world stage and they gave a pretty good the world stage. I guess it's a world stage. Yeah. They went to a world stage and they went pretty big and maybe would have impressed a few thousand people.
And I mean, it was definitely the biggest stream, I think, or maybe Gamescom a couple of years ago, but it's probably the biggest stream that Australian players have ever been playing in. Like there was probably 100,000 live or more. I don't know. I haven't seen the numbers, but there was more than 50,000.
It went up to 20,000 on the first day. Well, it started at 10,000, and then the pauses became such a joke that it went up to 20,000.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit embarrassing.
No, there was about 40 or 50,000 on just Twitch on the last day.
Yeah, in the finals it picked up because oh my god, it's the finals.
Yeah.
But like the pauses was just.
Yeah.
I find it a bit humiliating, really, because to the bigger regions in particular, like we're looked upon as like a joke. Like I mean, if you think back to Dark Passage at Worlds last year. Like, people were just laughing at them because they were like, oh, they're so bad. Fucking Dark Passage, free wins. Look at... And so, you know, we're looked upon as a bit of a joke, us smaller regions. And so when this pause stuff happens and then people jump into chat like, oh, my God, the pauses. And, like, there was one person... It was actually kind of funny, but one person posted in the Twitch chat, like, what's all this gameplay interrupting my pauses?
Yeah.
And then people were like, oh, this is why smaller regions are bad, come to NA or whatever. I'm like, oh, like, this is really humiliating.
Just don't read Twitch chat, man.
Yeah, I don't know what you're doing.
That's the lesson.
Always read Twitch chat. Raise your koalas,
all right,
baby!
Any final comments before we move on? Because we got to talk patch notes. So, any final thoughts?
Worlds 2016.
2016, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean...
He's coming...
Hopefully, like, they can continue to improve, because I guess now this is, like, the fourth year that this squad's been together for, so, I mean, they're actually probably starting to get quite old comparatively, like, which hopefully means more experience, but if you think about, like, you know, esports is one of those things where people peak early, like, it's not like you get to 26 or 27 and you're still going to be having a big career in esports, so I guess they're starting to get to the point where they're going to, these guys are going to be aging out.
It's going to be harder for Chiefs to get better from here on out because they're already so good compared to the other teams in our region that there's no one to really step up to anymore. Like they won just about every game bar one, and then against Legacy in the finals they dropped a game.
Yeah,
I mean when it was team immunity and they were dropping games every now and then, so there were still points where they could look back and say, "Oh, we need to step up this, we need to step up this," and it's harder to better yourself when you're shit stomping everyone.
Yeah,
because there's no points. There's no points where you can look and say, "Oh, we could have done that better." Like it's a bit harder to find those when you look back at replays when you're so dominant already. So I think the other teams need to finally step up and give Chiefs a challenge. So we can get Chiefs to Worlds next year.
I mean, Legacy did. Like, if you watch Legacy pre the semis, like before the semis, they weren't expected to beat Direwolves, and then that 1 week of them, like their boot camp, obviously they improved massively, and then they did it again between the semis and the finals, and managed to take a game off Chiefs. Like, obviously that's.
Yeah,
you know, they're not really putting it to Chiefs, but being able to take a game.
There's still a lot of room for those teams to grow because, you know, like, Direwolves and Legacy are quite comparable to each other, so they got this sort of rivalry thing where they're both boosting each other up, and then Immunity are trying to catch up to those dogs, and then Avant are trying to catch up to them as well, and then we have the lower teams that keep getting swapped in and out.
Yeah, but hopefully they can continue to improve and.
If they can get better and give Chiefs more challenge during our regular split, then we can see more improvement in Chiefs next year.
Yep. All right. Well, let's move on to some patch note discussion because we're going to talk a little bit briefly about 5.16 because we already had talked a lot about what's going on with the Juggernaut changes, but we didn't talk about the Juggernaut item changes. So there's 3 new items as of 5.16.
Karen has one thing he wants to say about the Juggernauts.
Oh, I was right about Skarner. It turns out he was crazy. He was so crazy they had to hotfix him.
70-something% win rate in the first 20 hours or something.
You know, if you put you have a champion that's like amazing around 2 key objectives that determine the outcome of the game. I'm not surprised that his win rate's so good.
On his spires or nothing like that, and they made the spires stupid, okay? And it all come down to how the spires work, and they didn't work how I thought they were going to work.
Yep.
And so, okay, turns out Skarner is pretty insane.
Yeah. So there was
Carrot
nerfs.
was right. Carrot was right.
Yes, Carrot was right,
He
yeah.
was right.
I need to change the name of the stream to Carrot was right. Actually, the name of the episode. Carrot was right.
Yeah. Or Vic was wrong.
Or Victor was wrong. So the 3 items that were added were the Dead Man's Plate, Sterex Gauge, and the Titanic Hydra. So these items specifically for the Juggernauts. So Dead Man's Plate is a Giant's Belt and a Chain Vest. It gives you 600 health, 50 armor. It gives you a unique passive that is called Dreadnought, which is still one of the coolest words in the English language. Yes. You build momentum stacks when moving up to while moving up to 100, granting up to 60 bonus movement speed. Momentum rapidly decays while under immobilizing crowd control effects, and decays slowly while slowed. And then the unique passive is Crushing Blow. Basic attacks discharge all momentum, dealing 1 bonus physical damage for every 2 momentum. If 100 stacks are discharged, the damage is doubled. If this attack is melee, the target will also be slowed for 75%, which is pretty massive. Yeah, people's thoughts?
I would love to... I've only built this item once, and I didn't really read it, and I built it on Nautilus. So it kind of... The passive is... The slow is a little bit useless when you've got a 1.5 second snare.
Yeah.
A 75% slow for 1 second doesn't do much.
You'll burn, because the thing about Nautilus is you'll burn that slow on your staggering blow.
Yeah, well,
so you're snaring them anyway. So what's the point of slowing them for 75%?
I know it was a mistake. I didn't read it.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it would be good to see. I mean, has anyone built it on like an Alistair or?
I know I've built it once, and I think it was on. What's his name? Troll guy. Trundle, yeah. And, I mean, I guess what we've seen with Righteous Glory as well is, like, when you add in these sort of speed, like these movement effects, like these movement speed boosting items, it has a really big impact on how useful some of these champions are. And 60 bonus movement speed is pretty amazing. I mean, that's like 2/3 this speed increase you get when you got Boots of Mobility going, so that's pretty huge. And
with Boots of Mobility, and
100 bonus physical damage is nothing to sneeze at, and a 75% slow. Like, especially you look at champions like Garen, like that's a huge thing for him because it gives him some actual CC. And you think about Nasus's, and I mean, there's a number of champions where this sort of thing is gonna make a huge impact for them. So, yeah, I think it looks pretty good. And 600 health, I mean, that's pretty tasty.
That's some good health. Even the armor's alright, 50. 50. That's more than what Sunfire gives you. Sunfire gives 45 armor.
And it is really useful. I mean, if you're playing like a oh no, hang on, I'm getting confused. I mean, even on Nautilus, I played. So obviously the snare cancels out the slow, but when you're playing something like that, the movement speed, I always have Moby boots, and then you can run around, and you don't have to use your hook. You can save that for the flash if you can run at them really fast, which is that's also a big advantage. Movement speed. That's not 60 is not a small amount of movement speed.
No, it's quite a bit.
60 is an awesome amount of movement speed, and I think that's the most appealing part of the ability itself. The damage is cool. I don't think too highly of the slow because a lot of the champions you would build this item on, like you mentioned Nautilus, the staggering blow completely cancels it out. Now, if you think about someone like they were talking about Volibear on the proper today, the other day, and you think Volibear, like, oh yeah, you throw them and you proc that slow, but you've thrown them over your shoulder, so you've already CC'd, and then you normally always pop Frenzy straight after, which is your AoE slow. So you're kind of wasting the slow you've gotten because you're already CCing people. So on people like the slow will be better on people like Garen for sure because hey, Garen finally has some kind of slow in his kit. Awesome. But there are some people like even Singed Like, you're more looking at it for the movement speed than the actual slow CC itself.
Yeah.
And you can sort of find ways to space it a bit, but you may as well just do what you normally do with your CC on your champion.
And they even say that in the patch notes. Singed. That's basically what we're saying. Buy this on Singed.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it'd be good on Singed mostly just for that movement speed, because it's just such a good amount of movement speed.
But I mean, there's lots of. I mean, you think about. I'm just having a look at some of the fighters. So Mundo, Gangplank, Garen, Hecarim, like they'll all benefit from the slow.
Yeah, I mean,
Jax,
like
Jarvan.
Jax could probably pull it off. Jarvan has a slow on his W already, but 75 is a bigger slow than what he gets anyway. Gangplank, it's a bit harder to work into his build because you prioritize more damage now, and it's actually quite depressingly harder to build tank plank than it was previously, which I'm really upset about. So there are champions who definitely benefit off the slow.
Yeah, Rengar. I mean, he's probably another one who benefits from both.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're going for the Ebola snare, then
Tarek will get a lot of use out of this item. Gives him the mood speed to engage. He long range stuns, runs up, slow, and it gives him health and armor. Like, it's actually a really not a bad item for Tarek.
Well, I'm doing that. I'm playing Tarek next.
I'll have to see where I can fit it into my amazing Tarek build, but yes, yes, Tarek is a candidate.
I mean, Shyvana as well. I mean, she's another one that lacks CC. Who's going to benefit from the move speed. Especially when she's in dragon form and she's chasing after people. It's going to make her very, very sticky. So,
the general consensus is Dead Man's Plate is a pretty good item.
Yeah, pretty good item. All right, so Sterex Gauge. So it's a longsword and a giant's belt, and 1100 gold, 1200 gold, 500 health, 25% base attack damage, unique passive while taking at least 400 to 1800 damage within 5 seconds, grants Primal Rage for 8 seconds, and it's on a 45-second cooldown. Primal Rage causes your champion to gain increased size, 25% additional base attack damage, and a rapidly decaying shield for 30% of your maximum health. So my initial thought was, I wonder how this will go compared to Atma's Impaler, because Atma's Impaler was always an item going back in the day where it gave you swapped health for AD, I think it was. But it never really could work because it basically made people so OP, or it was severely underwhelming. So yes, this is an interesting one.
It's confusing in how it turns on. Like, you need to take a big chunk of damage to turn it on, and then it's like, oh, well, if I'm a tank, I'm not technically taking too much damage in a short period of time.
More than 1800 damage. Oh, based 400.
No. It's based on level. So I assume that means if you picked it up at level 18, then you need to take 1800 damage within 5 seconds to turn it on.
Right. That makes sense. Sorry.
Yeah, I think it might have been better if it was more like a more of Malmortius, where it turns on when you hit 30% health. So then you get the shield and you get the damage boost, and so it's kind of like a second wind.
Yeah, but then if you're playing Olaf and you build this and more Malmortius, you just get your his passive up.
Yeah, you get a giant purple shield and a giant grey shield as well.
Shield, and then your passive is just ticking along. You'd be
you're on 2 HP with all these shields, just heal them back to full.
I mean, probably the person who comes to mind initially for this is Olaf. You know, he's going to want this in a big way because it's giving him a 50% base attack increase, and a shield and increased size. He's going to be taking the damage anyway, so.
Yeah, I reckon it'd be better on those damage heavier fighters more than like the full tank kind of dudes. Just because you'll take that damage quicker and you'll proc it sooner in the fight, and so you can go into this full rage with this giant shield and the extra base damage and just chop through people, rather than wait till I don't know. I haven't played with it enough. sometimes, like when I first built it, I wasn't quite noticing the shield. I think it decays like really fast. But I'm not too like I have to play with it more. Like I'm just not too sure about this item.
I feel like if you're losing and and they and they proc it, like they do that damage in
Oh yeah.
less than 5 seconds, it's probably not enough to save you. But if you're like a fed Aurelia or a fed Jax, and you jump in and they try and blow you up, but because you're fed, you're life stealing, and then this shield pops, and like you just become unkillable, even though you know, what I mean, it's just like a win harder item as opposed to a real like game changing save your life shield.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the champions, like, I mean, this works well with a bunch of the champions that you would expect it to. I mean, well, actually, the top 4 are, with the highest base AD, are the 4 champions that were turned into Juggernauts. So, Mordekaiser, Darius, Skarner, and Garen. So, Mordekaiser's got 146 base AD. So, 50% on top of that. So, it's taking you to 200 and, you know,
This
210.
is in his recommended builds, by the way.
Yeah.
This item.
Yeah, Garen, he's
Is he not
got...
OP anymore?
If
Garen's
you
gonna be
want
around
to hear
200
about
as well,
Mordekaiser, listen to the last episode of the OzLoL podcast.
Yeah.
If you check Mordekaiser's recommended build set, it has AD items,
Yep.
AP items, tank items, and support items in it.
Okay.
It has
Which is
every
always-
kind of item in his recommended page.
You meant to get Gunblade back in the day, so it kind of is similar.
I mean, I guess the question is, like, the cost of the item. So, I mean, 2250 is actually... So, 2550 is relatively cheap.
The
500
combined,
health is nice.
the combined cost is 1,190, which is
Yeah, it's pretty huge.
which is pretty annoying.
Yeah.
I used to get frustrated at finishing Blade of the Ruin King before it built before they changed it to build out of a recurve bow. Like a big combined cost is annoying,
Yeah.
and so like that is at a pretty annoying spot. Like if maybe like a longsword, it's because a longsword doesn't cost anything. Come on, Rito Games, make it something better.
Well, I mean, like, I guess the alternative would to be build it out of a pickaxe and a giant's belt. But then you have the similar sort of problem where pickaxe is an expensive item to build on its own. I mean, it's the inability to turn a longsword into a pickaxe, I think, is probably the thing you'd want to change. So if you could change, you know, upgrade a longsword to a pickaxe, then it wouldn't be so hard to then have a smaller combined cost. But it's interesting, right? Talk about this sort of thing where they say, well, if we make it easier to buy, then we have to nerf the damage of, like, you know, nerf its power. So that's, I guess, an interesting kind of thing. Like, they can make it more powerful if it's harder to build.
I think that's more directed to like the BF sword in particular. Like if they step build the BF sword, then like it's harder to put someone behind because they step by it rather than just come back with a BF sword. And so they never really fall that far behind. But anyway, I'm not too sure about Sterix Gauge anyway, but I think good candidates for it. Wombat mentioned Irelia and Jax. I think they're really good, and I think Olaf would also be awesome with this.
Yeah, yeah. I can't imagine it really catching on in a big way. Like, I think you look at Dead Man's Play, and you think there's a lot of champions that are getting a lot of benefit out of that. I look at Sterix Gauge and go, okay, there's some interesting things there, but I'm not entirely certain.
Well,
you know,
the thing
whether
about Dead Man's Plate is I can think of one big situation where I'd want to build that, and that's if I want to roam around a bit more from the top lane. So I want to run down to mid, pick up a Dead Man's Plate, 60 movement speed. I'm not losing that as much time as I normally would. Or if I'm, I don't know, like maybe, I don't know, Wombat, would you build it out of support?
I think Wombat's gone.
Is he gone?
Yeah, you definitely wouldn't build this out of support. Like, it's just...
No.
There's nothing here that you'd really... I mean, a longsword you're not going to use on anything. And
I was talking about Dead Man's, not...
Oh, Dead Man, sorry. Dead Man's Plates... It's just probably too expensive.
Yeah.
Like, for what you get.
That's what I figure.
You know, even... I mean, Tarek, I think, is probably about the only one you'd probably think about doing it. And you'd have to be fed out of your
Tarek's
mind.
Okay.
You know, he's probably about the only one you'd consider, and it's a pretty expensive item for what you get. So,
Okay.
yeah. All right, let's get into Titanic Hydra. So, okay, we're gonna have to. I'm just gonna change the stream settings. So we're still going, but I just had to change the.
Did I go big?
You just went big.
Hello, everybody.
Except I've now covered it up. So yeah, that's annoying. Anyway, Titanic Hydra. So Titanic Hydra is a 3,300 gold. It's a Tiamat, a Giant's Belt, and 400 gold. It gives you 400 health, 50 AD, 100% base health regen. Its unique passive is Cleave. It's slightly different from Tiamat's normally. So base attack steal 5 plus 1% of your maximum health to your primary target, and 40 plus 2% of your maximum health as physical damage to enemies in a cone on hit. So the initial target doesn't take as much damage as the other targets. Then the unique active is Crescent. Cleaves damage to all targets is increased to 40 plus 10% of your maximum health as a bonus physical damage in a larger cone for your next basic attack. A 20-second cooldown.
So much damage.
Yeah, it's a lot of damage. It's a really expensive item, though.
Yeah.
And I mean, Tiamat's an absolute pig of an item to build. Like, it really is just the worst. It's a regen, it's a rejuve bead,
beads,
you know, long sword, pickaxe. It's just stupid.
It's a very popular item though, Tiamat.
Yeah, well, I mean, Ravenous Hydra is a great item, so that's why people build it. So, you know, I think one might be almost back. He's back.
Sorry.
It's alright.
Now you got to fix the stream again.
It's all
you should
good.
have just stuck with Big Cam, Victor.
Easily fixed. So, we're talking about Titanic Hydra. So, I mean, I think this is probably not a bad alternative to Ravenous Hydra for some champions.
For a lot of champions, actually, because this doesn't have the lifesteal on it, and then so there are some people like, I don't know, you think like Scion.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Scion really liked Ravenous Hydra.
Yep.
Because of the way, you know, it's AoE, he doesn't have to burn mana to clear waves, and gives him a bit more damage, whatever, but the lifesteal component wasn't that great on him.
Yeah.
I mean, it gave some pretty good regen as well, but the lifesteal's like, well, I'm not building enough damage to really make the most of this lifesteal. So now we have Titanic Hydra, which rather than giving you lifesteal, just gives you health.
Yep.
And health, I mean, I'm Scion, I love health.
Yep.
So it's a really nice alternative to the tankier dudes who like to build Hydra because, I mean, you know, it gives them better wave clear and AoE damage in team fights without needing to use mana.
Yep.
So it's a very nice alternative for the tankier dudes who aren't prioritizing more AD to better suit the lifesteal.
So, I mean, I guess someone like a Darius would probably still be a Ravenous Hydra. Like, it's still, I mean, Ravenous Hydra is still a good item for kind of more the attack damage end of that fighter spectrum. So, like a Jax or a Fiora or Darius or those kind of guys, like, they'd probably tend towards Ravenous Hydra, where Titanic Hydra is better for, you know, Nasus or, well, Trundle and Shyvana they mentioned in this, you know, like, I'm trying to think of...
Scion, I mentioned.
Scion, Garen...
I got a question about it.
Yeah.
What do you think, like, say you're playing Riven, and you build your teammate, and then at that point you realise you're getting absolutely dumpstered in lane, like totally destroyed. Is there an argument to build a Giant's Belt instead of, or to build into the Hydra instead of the, into the Titanic instead of the Ravenous?
Well, except it's based on maximum health as physical damage, so she's not building health at all. Like, basically the only health item she'll really be building is the Giant's Belt, where Sion's going to have 4,000 health. Actually, probably not a bad option for this item as well as Mundo. You know, because anybody who's got lots of maximum health and is in top lane is probably going to benefit from this a lot. And I mean, this one with the unique active, like, you just deal a shit ton of damage. You just do, you know, one gigantic wall up with max health damage, and then
the active's also a true auto attack reset.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's a whereas Hydra it does the AoE thing, which is kind of an auto attack reset. This is a true auto attack reset.
Yeah. So this is good for those guys, like for someone who is more likely to go in and only hit occasionally rather than a Fiora or a Riven or a Darius who's like they're going to be wanting to hit everybody repeatedly. They're kind of more on the damage side of things. So you think about, I mean, the large cone is actually pretty huge. To do 10% of your maximum health against pretty much the whole team if they're in a bunch is rad as hell.
Yeah. On a Mundo, that just seems great. That just seems insane.
Or, I mean, actually, Yeah, even like a Singed or something, because Singed is going to run up, hit once, and then you flip somebody and drag them off. So
I don't know if there's enough auto attacks in Singed playstyle to really justify it though.
but the thing is, you're only using the unique active once every 20 seconds.
Yeah, well, it's just the basic passive on it's good as well. I mean,
Yeah.
What about like J4? Did you just talk about J4? I reckon
depending on your build of J4, you can do
Yeah.
Titanic or Ravenous. They both work.
yeah,
Like
true,
the
I guess
damage,
it's
like
good
the assassin Jarvans, they still go for Ravenous for sure because
Yeah.
they'll better use the extra damage and lifesteal.
just melee carries like your Riven and your Master Yi and that are easily my worst champions. I'm absolutely terrible at them. So
I mean, the other thing is, sorry,
Yeah.
I interrupted. Ravenous Hydra gives more base, like gives actually more attack damage. So anybody who scales better off attack damage rather than sort of health, they're the ones you'd want to go with Ravenous Hydra. So I think Jarvan scales okay with them, from what I can think of off the top of my head.
Jarvan can do either or. Like it just depends on your build of Jarvan.
Yeah.
Because there are the attack heavy Jarvans and then there are the tank heavy Jarvans.
I mean, I guess with all these items, I mean, Riot have been putting out lots of great items. The question is always, do you build them compared to the alternatives? I think if you're fed, this is probably not a bad item. I just wonder, if it's such an expensive item, I wonder if lots of sort of utility, like takes the focus on utility. Like, I mean, Mundo, he does a lot of damage, but really he's just there to be this, unstoppable brick that just kind of runs through the team and just harasses the marksman until they die. I just sort of wonder whether, like, how many of those sorts of tanks will actually be able to afford to buy this item.
I think you said it yourself. It depends how the game's going.
Yeah.
Like if you're pulling ahead and you got a good creep score and you don't need to really start focusing in on your defenses, you can probably just pick it up straight away, or even just sit on the tier map for a little bit if you wanted to. Maybe complete Randuin's or something and then go into it, but it really depends how the game goes, and I think it scales a bit better than the Ravenous Hydra because it's off your % max health. So if you're like a Cinderhulk Warmogs dude coming out of the jungle, you might be looking at your fourth item or third item and you go, might get a Titanic Hydra. I got a lot of HP. I can put out a lot more damage here, I reckon.
And it certainly gives their damage a lot more relevance in late game. Like, you think about a 5,000 hit point Scion, to get hit with like 500 straight up burst damage on an auto attack to the whole friggin' team. Like, that's pretty rad. Like, you never turn that one down.
Like, Gromp's passive when you smite it got nerfed from 10% to 5% because it was dealing too much damage to AD carries. And that's like a Thornmail type effect that was too strong and it was 10%.
Yep.
So
it's even, I guess it's one of those things that you can wait till you get to the late game, you get to 6 items and you're like, might as well be a Hydra. Might as well be a Hydra because, it doesn't sort of fall off at its damage. Yeah, I mean, like, Righteous Glory, I'd still build Righteous Glory before this. Like, there's still a few items you'd build before this. So maybe 5th or 6th item, it's probably worth consideration.
Yeah. Again, I think it depends on how the game's going and who you're playing and what kind of role you want to fill for your team. Do you want to get you more damage earlier? Or do you need to start building your tank items in there? Do you need to be the dude who's engaging for your team? Okay, maybe look at a couple other things before you come into the Hydra or whatever.
Yep. Well, we're actually now at basically about an hour, so we didn't even get to 5:17.
Ripping pepperonis.
Yeah, forever stuck in patch note hell. Like
we'll always be in patch note hell.
Yeah, we are. We will always be.
Carried in Elo hell.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, well, Luke, why don't you tell us again, like, where people can find you if they want to get a hold of you?
Social media, website.
Social media and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
just in case people missed it.
So you can hit me up on Twitter, at wombat_Luke, I think.
You are terrible.
That's
you
correct.
are terrible.
I am. I'm sorry. I'm pretty sure
you don't know
that's
your own
right.
Twitter handle. Jesus Christ.
I got it written down somewhere. Anyway.
Written down somewhere.
Well, if it's wrong, then it's wrong on the stream as well, because that's what I've got up underneath your
Oh,
face
great.
on the stream.
Oh, great. So that's good. I'm glad. So, yeah, hit me up there on Twitter or go to wombatgaming.com or Facebook, YouTube. You'll find it.
And actually, you should make mention that all three of us appeared on the most recent All Random All podcast.
Yes.
You didn't really think about that one, did you, Victor?
You know why I call it the All Random All Podcast?
Why?
It's a joke.
Okay.
Because I was calling it the A Rap Podcast.
Yeah.
In the like in the first few episodes.
Yeah.
And they were all complaining. They're like, Victor, stop calling it the A Rap Podcast because you're saying the All Random All Podcast.
Yeah, it's like ATM machine.
It's like ATM machine.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, fuck you guys. Welcome to the All Random All Podcast. So Luke and Carrot were on the last All Random All Podcast, which we recorded last
Sunday?
night. Sorry. Fuck, is it that far ago?
Yeah.
I haven't uploaded the video yet.
Yeah,
The video is going up this week
Yep.
to YouTube, which is Gokko Picks Gaming, and you can also find us on Twitter. The audio podcast versions are a week delayed from the videos, though.
Yeah.
And that is, again, under Gokko Picks Gaming. You can also just look up All Random All Podcast, and you will find the playlist and everything.
And we're talking about tabletop games.
Yep.
So
yes, there's a
it's
lot
like
of D&D
ultimate
chat.
Nerd.
Yeah.
The
It's like
ultimate nerd,
card games, role-play games, and then miniature games.
Miniatures as well.
That's right.
Yay, I get
So-
to promote myself on the T-Force channel.
Hey, well,
This is
I usually
awesome.
let you do that. All right. Well, that basically is the end of it for this week. For episode 98, we'll be back episode 99, hopefully with Steve back. And we should be doing that next week. So we'll see you then.
Getting close to 100. Oh, good evening, ladies and gentlemen.